Hello and welcome to yet another episode of Beyond the Bites, a show that decodes the trending issues of the region. The Northeast is often seen as part of the country where women command more respect. And why not? After all, it is in the region that we have a number of matrilineal societies. But hang on, is there something more than what meets the eye? Are women actually in control in these so-called matrilineal societies or anywhere for that matter? After all, we talk a lot about women's empowerment these days. So, to cut it short, matrilineal society or not, are women forced to be the carriers of tradition, history and culture across societies even till this date? Is this the burden that modern women have to live with? Well, to discuss that and much more, we have a very small group of panelists with us today. I have with me Ms. Teenat Masood, a social activist. A very warm welcome, Teenat Masood, to Beyond the Bites. I also have with me Dr. Sakira Shaheen from the Department of Women's Studies, Guwahati University, Associate Professor. Welcome, Dr. Shaheen, to Beyond the Bites. And I also have with me Dr. Sabrina Iqbal Sarkar from the Department of Political Science, Cotton University. Thank you, Dr. Iqbal, for joining us. And from Shillong, we are being joined by Hasina Karbi, who is the founder of Impulse NGO and also a social activist. A very warm welcome to all of you in this episode of Beyond the Bites. Well, to start with, I'll come straight to you, Teenat. Even in this modern society, are women still facing the burden of being carriers of tradition culture? I mean, do we see this everywhere even till now in this age?
Well, talking about tradition, I think today we're going to be talking about something that women are we at the receiving end. Now, Naburun, I'd like to start with one of my own examples, which happened somewhere around 2000. And in fact, just before that, before I started off my career in Hindustan Times, I was working with Wasbir Hussain, in fact, who is your editor-in-chief, and he had given me a column which I was writing. This was a paper he was working for, and I was writing a column. Straight after that, I was asked to join Hindustan Times as a stringer. And I was very happy that, going from a columnist to actually working in a national paper was something which was a big deal for me. And I, in fact, started off with a lot of exuberance, with a lot of excitement and everything. And I remember I made news on everything. Political news, the local news, especially my area was Guwahati, so I used to work a lot around Guwahati. I remember one thing, I was the only female on board in that office. And apart from the other stringer, who was a man, and our head was a man also, the gentleman who was looking after us, our team leader, and the others, there was a marketing section. I still remember, as my year, I came to around 6 months, I still remember when I used to go down to file my stories, and every evening, that was like an evening shift, from 5 to 10 onwards. It was like in the afternoon, I used to go hunting for my news, and then I used to come back and file my news. I remember after the 6th month, and I was doing very well for myself, I started noticing one thing, that all the desktops, the computers that had their the screensavers, they were all of half-nude women. And I was feeling terrible. I asked a couple of people out there, who's the person who's actually doing this? And they had no reply. They didn't know who was doing this. And every morning when I come back, the next day when I come, not morning, when I come back in the afternoon to file my news, I would remove those pictures by the evening, but those pictures would come back on the screens again. So what I did, I asked the team leader. He said, no, I don't know about it. My co-worker, he doesn't know about it. So what I did, I wrote to the head office in Kolkata. And as I wrote to the head office in Kolkata, there was no reply. Absolutely no reply. I think I shot around 10 to 12 letters. Now, Barun, believe me, I wrote to them and I said, I'm being harassed. I'm being ostracized here. I'm being, every kind of things that had to be done. And please take some action. They took absolutely no action on this, on my part. And then what was the receiving end? I was the one who had to leave because I could not work in an environment where the men were doing this to me. So when I'm telling you the story, I'm not a feminist. Let me make this very clear. I'm not a feminist. I like to work with men, and I like all the men who work around with me. I deeply respect and regard them. But when such things happen in a society, when it happens in an office, then you're bound to think otherwise. That what's going on exactly? Why do I have to leave? Why has no action been taken? Why did no Calcutta person come down from the head office to find out what had actually happened in that office. Why was there no action taken?
You of course thought that was a deliberate ploy because a woman was
Absolutely,
doing well for herself. Of
absolutely.
course, that is one of the points that we'll
And I was the only
discuss
female.
more in
Yes.
course of our debate here. Dr. Sakira Shaheen, do you think it's a kind of matter of convenience, a practice of convenience to make women the bearers of culture and tradition?
Well, because you started by talking about this region and how, you know, the idea that women in this part of the country have a better deal. I would beg to differ completely from that and break this myth about women in the Northeast having a better deal. We've seen with the n number of examples where we see how things have always, women in fact, have always, like you've pointed out, been the repositories of culture and tradition, and gender is somewhere, you know, looked at as a central category in which this construction of tradition is you know, carried forward. So I would like to believe that I mean, women have not had a kind of what it is made to believe. For example, the Constitution of India guarantees gender equality. On the one hand, where there are formal laws in place which talks about gender equality on the one side. On the other, you also have these how community identity, religious identity, and all of that are given salience in our constitution. They have been provided protection, by way of which women, of course, you know, kind of, as we all are aware, that women are within these laws and regulations, women have always been at the receiving end, as Tina put it. So yes, I mean, I think women have always been the scapegoat in that. And I would also like to maybe point this out, that we as women, and I'm glad we are having this discussion, because we need to have more engagement with such larger issues, given the fact that on a daily basis we see such things happening, where the community is pressurizing women, you know, to act and behave in a certain way which is quite against the principle of social justice and gender equality, which otherwise this country stands for. So in that sense, yes, I would say.
Yeah, but then Dr. Sabrina Iqbal Sarkar, if I can use this word, women generally enjoy more autonomy. I am deliberately using this word autonomy, okay, considering the existing state of affairs in the country and the region. But women have generally enjoyed more autonomy in the Northeast when compared to their counterparts in the rest of the nation. Still, they have been the victims of the patriarchal mindset. Why do you think so?
See, I would agree with Dr. Shaheen when she says that actually this is a myth that the women are better off in this part of the country. But yes, there is a slight different way I would like to state it. We are maybe 0.1% comparatively better off than the rest of the country. But we cannot, make a statement that we are better off, because actually the entire idea of gender parity or gender equality is more on the surface. And there are very strong currents of patriarchy, misogyny, which are prevalent in all parts of the Northeast, but they are very conveniently shoved up under the ideas of matrilineal society and gender egalitarianism. Now, when it comes to culture, Navarun, I would tell you that, there is a saying when we teach gender studies and feminism, there's a saying that men are from nature and women are from culture, because we inherently associate women with culture. In a way, culture is a kind of a tool, maybe a kind of a mechanism which is internalized by the woman, and it is made to play in every aspect of her life, from the way she dresses to the choices she makes to the kind of person she marries. Everything is dictated by this element of culture. But the irony which I would like to highlight is the fact that culture is constructed. Culture is constructed by one section of the society who think it is convenient to legitimize things in the name of culture. And this is where the problem arises, because most of the decisions in the name of culture which are imposed upon the women are not taken by the women themselves. So it is a very, very tricky dimension that we have to address here when we're talking about women and culture and societies.
Absolutely. Most of the decisions taken in the name of culture are not taken by women, unfortunately. If we can go to Hasina Karbi in Shillong on this note. Hasina, of course, she is the founder of Impulse NGO and a social activist. Well, we all know the kind of absolute rights that women enjoy in matrilineal Meghalaya. Despite that, do you think women are still at the receiving end?
I think when we talk about women issues and the whole, how women empowerment is actually progressing today, I would really like to bring in that even though women who are here in a matrilineal society, these women are actually facing a lot of patriarchal system which is actually affecting the day-to-day functioning. Because if you're looking, when people look at a matrilineal society, they always feel that the women are better off. But when we are talking about women being empowered, we still find very, very less women who are actually taking lead roles or leadership roles. And very often is often said that women has to be in the backdrop in a traditional like a matrilineal society. So I think that that challenge is always there. It's just not about being in a matrilineal or not being in a matrilineal. The other aspect that I wanted to bring is that tradition, culture and tradition is evolving every day. And the education system, the system which is actually opening up women participation, is also bringing in the debate in a lot of ways. So I would say my take is that in today's world, tradition is being challenged every day because women are coming forward and are challenging those norms.
Hasina, but how would you react? How would you react to the recent Khasi lineage bill, the amendment bill passed by the KHDC? Of course, it has not got the assent of the governor, but still, is it not an attempt to curb the freedom of women, their freedom to choose?
Yes, traditionally, when we talk about matrilineal society, the culture itself, women's role are very important. But the recent bill is actually trying to curb the freedom of women in a matrilineal society. It is a debatable bill at the moment, and there are two angles to the bill. It is not very human right in the way it approaches to women's right issues. And I would say that this bill has no stand. As a woman from this society who have seen how the culture has evolved over the years, we still have this strong belief that the role of women in a matrilineal society is very important, and the bill cannot change that aspect. And the kind of bill by saying that if a Khasi woman marry a non-Khasi man, she will be, not called a Khasi. It's completely not a right aspect from a women's right perspective.
Okay. Now, coming back to you, Dr. Sakira Shaheen, we were just talking about the Khasi lineage bill, amendment bill, which the Khasi Hills Autonomous District Council passed, which says that if a Khasi woman has to marry a non-tribal, she would lose the tribal status, and the offsprings too would not be entitled to any of the benefits that she is aligned to. But then, why is it that it's always the women who are targeted? Women have to make the sacrifice. Nobody ever questions a man for marrying outside the community.
Yeah.
Why is it always about the women? Be it honor killings, across the country, or be it in this case.
Right. I think the crux of the matter is this, that after all, we are a patriarchal society. Even in a matrilineal, the line of descent is through the mother to the youngest daughter, as in Khasi and other matrilineal societies. But we operate within a patriarchal setup, and we have to look at this issue in the context of the present changes in the socio-economy of the society, where there are other issues. There are issues about land, there are issues about property alienation, all of that which is going on in such societies in the present economic setup. So women have been, in this particular issue, I feel it just opens up the floodgates for confining women further, or infringing on women's rights further. It's a gender war. I am speaking as an outsider, of course. I'm not a Khasi woman, so that disclaimer I have to give, that this is a bill which apparently, what we have been hearing about is that it is there to preserve Khasi society. But what is it that one is preserving? We know culture is dynamic, culture is something that is socially constructed, and the Khasiness. So we come to this, we look at this as something that is created as us and them, we and the other. It is in that context where women have always, lost out, and they have been made to live up to that expectation of maintaining the cultural identity of a particular community, which I think is very wrong, and it is
Yes,
something
like
that
to add
needs
to
to
it.
be. Yeah.
I'd just like to add something. This is something that I just remembered. In fact, this is this kind of alienating a woman is like an animal instinct. If you see in a herd of, suppose it's a lion, and this lioness actually goes and, she flirts with another lion from a different herd, the lion will come and actually kill that particular lion.
So
I
women
think,
themselves have been property in that sense.
Yes,
They
are like a property. So what happens is that here we are saying that we are literate, we are a literate society, we are educated, we are above everything and all, and then here we see a very animal instinct. I think it's time that we come out of this animal instinct. That what you were saying, I just kind of remembered this.
I would like to kind of add another perspective to what Dr. Shaheen said. First of all, let me just place this context of women's autonomy out of the arena of a matrilineal society. So whether a matrilineal society or not, a woman has the rights to her basic autonomy. Like choosing the kind of person she wants to marry. This is a very basic human right, right? We just had Section 377 scrapped. All right, giving gay sex a legal status in our country. But
Absolutely.
we don't have the women enjoying the right to marry somebody she wants to, right? The second perspective that I would like to bring forth is what, you see that wherever there is any kind of provision in any culture, in any community, in any religion which privileges the women, there is always an attempt on the part of the patriarchal elite to upset that and turn it in their favor so that they can control the women, and so that the gendered status quo is not upset. I think that's a very important perspective that we have to deal with. Now, in the Khasi society, the youngest daughter gets the property. Once she gets the property, she has the reach to the resources like land and house and stuff, right? So what happens is that once she's economically powerful, her independence is enhanced. Once she is independent, she becomes a threat to the status quo in which obviously the male is above the female. So they have to come up, the patriarchal elite have to come up with newer ways to control the women, so be it the Khasi case, and I would also like to pull in the context of the Parsi women here. There's a similar battle, among the Parsi women. The Bombay Parsi Panchayat, they have raised up this issue that if a Parsi woman marries outside the community, she is also excommunicated from the community. So you see, this is not an isolated event. We always have seen instances where the woman is always stripped of any kind of privilege or power that she has been allotted to by her religion or by her community. So that is rather ironical, I think.
So I just want to add to it, even when that privilege or power that Dr. Iqbal talks about is just something that is at the level, at the face, at the surface level. For example, in the matrilineal society, it is not as if women have a very good status. After all, it is operating within a patriarchal setup. A woman who's given, the youngest daughter who's given the property is only, after all, the custodian. She cannot sell off that property. She cannot, do anything much with that. And anyway, we have to understand the land arrangement that is there. I mean, it's communally owned, right? Most of this land, it's given by the clan. So all of that, keeping all of that in mind, and the fact that the woman is also then entitled to look after her parents, that's an additional burden. Given the fact that marriage system itself in a matrilineal society becomes very loose, and most often we see women being deserted by their husbands, and she's left to then fend for her children. So all of these issues are already existing in a matrilineal society, and and on top of that, even the basic thing which apparently the right that is given to her is that also is a problem, and even you have a bill saying that you cannot exercise that.
Even considering all this, Khasi women do enjoy a lot of power, a lot of rights within the society, which is commendable given when we compare the situation to the rest of the nation. Now, if I can come back to Hasina Kharbi. Hasina, the reason the KHEDC chief H.S. Shilla gave for passing the bill is he wanted to secure the future of the Khasi community, the minority Khasi community, which would be endangered if the women were to marry outside the community. How do you look at that?
I really want to bring this to the entire people who are watching this show, that traditionally Khasi people, I mean women who are giving the surname to the children, has been practiced from ancient years.
Absolutely.
I'm the youngest in the family. My children goes with my lineage, and that has been there for generation after generation. Whether she marries a Khasi or a non-Khasi, the lineage is through the woman. Now the question comes back here now. The KHADC is bringing the new dimension that the tribe will be, the small tribe will disappear if more Khasi women are marrying non-Khasi man, and she will be isolated, she will be taken out from being a Khasi, which is not practiced in ancient years. Traditionally, this is an existence which in fact the rest of the world have always been trying to understand the right issue
was
of women in
the
a
sorry to interrupt you,
especially.
yeah, sorry to interrupt you. Was the KHADC chief falling short of reasons? I mean, we have had Khasi women marrying outside the community till, you know, as long as I can remember, and even before that. This is nothing new. This is nothing new. And all of a sudden, the KHADC decides to come up with this bill, and then the chief comes up with this reason.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring in perspective.
Yeah.
No, but I just wanted to bring in perspective that Khasi, you know, I mean, Khasi women marrying a non-Khasi or Khasi is a practice in ancient years. It cannot be changed overnight. And the fact remains is the lineage goes through the mother, and that will continue. Changing that means you are bringing a patriarchal system into the society, which is not there. And the fact that he is trying to bring forward that Khasi women are giving the businesses, you know, to non-Khasi men to enjoy privileges of non-taxation and others benefit by marrying, when they marry a Khasi woman. And that's an exploitation according to the bill. But to me, I would say that even Khasi men who are trying to exploit the tradition by actually giving, you know, non-Khasi, businesses to come and perform activities in the states. Why are they not questioning that? Why are they questioning only a Khasi women, you know, marrying a non-Khasi man? So that is a very peculiar, that's very patriarchal in the way this bill is being targeted at women in the traditional aspect.
So is it more of an economic war? Is this how the KHADC looking at it? And in the process, the women are getting victimized?
The KHADC, yes, the women are getting victimized because they feel it's an economic reason that when she marry a non-Khasi man, he is going to exploit the resources, exploit the businesses in the society because he will be waived off of taxes. That's one aspect. But the reason now, if you're looking at the economic aspect, a lot of Khasi men are actually giving, you know, non-Khasi people to do businesses in their name. Why is that not being questioned? Why is it only a Khasi women, you know, status of marrying a non-Khasi is being questioned? This is something where the loophole of this bill. If they have to protect the economic rights of the tribal people, they have to have other ways of strengthening the mechanism of how they give licensing to businesses. It cannot be that because a woman is giving these privileges to non-Khasi men.
Right. That's a valid point.
I'll just add something here.
Yes.
I think for Hasina's information and also for KHADC, there are certain businessmen who have married into a Khasi, they have married Khasi women, and they are now so powerful. They are such huge businessmen in Shillong, in Meghalaya, that they can even make and break a government. So I mean, they should be questioning why an outsider comes in and marries instead of questioning the woman. I think that's more important. There are certain people, I mean, I wouldn't like to name it now. They would be just questioning me again. How do you know all this information?
Of course,
but then there are these huge businessmen who actually give money to the government, to the Meghalaya government, to actually, make the government or to break the government.
But the point is, can we question them for that? How do we know that they have married for business? I mean, that will be debatable. I mean, they have just done well for themselves in life. Can't we just leave it at that?
I think Khasi women, it's a natural instinct to marry someone. I mean, it's a natural, attraction to actually get married to someone out of their community. Because I think, personally, the community, the children who are the progeny, is much more intelligent now because they have married out of their community.
That will be a very strong statement to make. Hasina
No, that
Karbi,
is,
would you like to come in here?
Well, yes, I would like to comment here is that if you look at the tribes in Meghalaya, any surname that goes with Khar, Khar in the beginning, it's Khasi men who are marrying non-Khasi women, and then a new tribe is formed. I mean, I would say a new clan is formed where there will be a Tangjat ceremony taking place. This has been practiced in ancient years because the tribe, was very small. So Khasi men was marrying outside and bringing the formation of a new clan, and all the clan which is actually having the surname Khar, as I have, it's a clan where a Khasi man married a non-Khasi woman. That is not being questioned, but the question is coming here is for the woman marrying, a non-Khasi man. This is quite a peculiar way of how the bill is actually looking into it. So this is two aspects. Coming back to the other comment, which I think our panelist has mentioned, that there are a lot of non-Khasi businessmen who are marrying, Khasi women for the benefit of businesses or for the benefit of economic. Of course, there's no denial about that, but that cannot be generalized for the whole communities. This kind of situation happens in every culture, in every aspect. But if they feel that the economic is being threatened by this aspect, then they can strengthen the policy of giving business permits from KHADC, ensuring that every aspect of that permit system is being checked. There has to be a check and balance. Why are they not looking at a check and balance to prevent economic exploitation of non-Khasi men into the society?
Are you trying to suggest, Hasina Karbi, to the KHDC that instead of saying that Khasi women marrying outsiders would lose their tribal status, the KHDC should actually see to it that Khasi women marrying outsiders, the outsiders should not be doing business or procure a trading license in their names or something like that, something towards some kind of a law like that. Are you suggesting, hinting towards that?
So what I'm trying to what I'm suggesting is KHADC should ensure an equal opportunities for Khasi people doing businesses in the state, whether it's a Khasi woman or a Khasi man. But if they have to prevent exploitation, as they mentioned, that an outsider is exploiting to do business in our state by marrying a Khasi woman, then they also have to see that there are Khasi men who are actually giving license, permits, trade permits to others to do businesses. If they have to ensure that, then I think my suggestion would be, why can they have a regulated regulations that every trade permits that is being given should be checked, should be observed technically in the correct manner so that there's no exploitation. So it should not be like men versus women or women versus men. It should never be on that angle. It should be in terms of protecting, economic opportunities for tribal
that
people.
That is still vague.
So why should it just be men versus and women versus?
Okay. We'll take a short break on this note. Don't go anywhere. A lot more coming up on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching Beyond the Bites. We're discussing women's issue today. Are women still being made the carriers of culture, tradition, and history? Well, before the break, we had Hasina Karbi from Shillong saying how the bill, the Khasi lineage bill passed by the KHDC, was more about an economic war and also aimed at suppressing the rights of women, and things could have been handled better. Now, Dr. Sarkar, does it again hint at women being treated as property, as resource?
Yes, partly. I think, I would like to kind of address the problem from three perspectives, Firstly, when you are addressing a problem like the one we have at hand today, it's a problem which has broader dimensions related to it, like property, allocation, land, etc. Second, and the more important dimension, which is important, I think, is that, we are not treating women as full citizens in themselves, because we are limiting their autonomy in making their basic decisions which pertain to their private lives. And there comes the entire idea of treating women as second-class citizens. How can we allow...
That is happening across societies, not
Yes,
just
but we
one
cannot
particular.
have specific legislations telling women where to marry and where not to marry. I think that is very, specifically offensive to the Khasi women. They cannot be dictated who to choose and who not to choose for life partners. And, the third perspective that I would like to bring in is that whenever it comes to issues like clan endogamy or exogamy, it is always the women. The thing that, has been highlighted by all the panelists in general is that, why are we always talking about the women who have to carry the burden of protecting the culture, civilization, cultural norms? It is not the exclusive responsibility of women. Women are not the flag bearers of culture and honor for any particular society, and like Ms. Hasina said, it should be a thing which is distributed equally among the men and the women, because the men are also marrying outside the community, and this is not only true for the Khasi community but for the other communities as well. So why are we not taking up the question of men marrying outside the community? Plus, what happens when a woman marries, it is not necessary that she has to convert or take up, the religion of the person that she is marrying under the Special Marriages Act. So there are many things which come into question here. We are actually looking at the problem from very, restricted, from a very parochial perspective, where we are thinking that the woman will definitely take up the religion, the culture of the person that she marries. She will abandon her native religion, culture, community, and, then things will get messed up. But the idea is that we have to start treating ideas like clan endogamy, exogamy, women's rights all together, and we have to see from a broader perspective where men are also involved in protecting the culture, cultural norms, and cultural sustenance of a particular community.
But all this only goes on to say that we are not a free society by any means.
Absolutely.
Scared, paranoid, conservative.
True.
Don't want to lose one of our own. Ghettoed. We're not a free society by any means, and we are probably not even heading towards that even in the 21st century.
A recent case, this is totally off the context from what we are talking about. Just I think 2 days back, a BJP person, she's a member of the BJP, Srimati Meera Borthakur. She's a close friend of mine. Though I have an ideology of the Congress, I'm an activist and all that is in place. But we still work together. We have worked for the Citizenships Amendment Bill. We went out on the streets doing it together. We did it. But she had dared to speak against one of the MPs, against his, against his corruption, against the kind of things he's been doing. And she has been removed with just a WhatsApp message saying that she has been removed from her membership. She will no longer be there. And guess who's behind that? It's the women who are behind her to actually to suspend her from that membership. So when I talked to her, she said, look at what's happened. There's nobody speaking about the man who's done, the MP who's done the wrong, but it's me who has been let off from the membership because I had dared to speak to the Prime Minister, to write to the Prime Minister against him. So you see how she's at the receiving end. Meera Borthakur has been removed, and she says that there are certain.
Can I just
across parties which have been very male dominated in the country.
So that's what I'm saying, that she's at the receiving end.
We name any party and we can have several. I mean, recently we had a case in Kerala with a CPIM worker who had written to the party chief whip, the party's senior party leaders, even to Sitaram Yechuri, complaining against a local MLA. So there are numerous examples.
No, I'm saying that always in politics, the woman is at the receiving end. That's what I'm saying.
No, I want to kind of analyze what Ms. Masood said from a broader perspective. Whatever happens to women, be it this case of the Khasi women or the Parsi women or women in general, usually what happens, I'm going to pull in a radical feminist argument here, because the women are always treated as a sex class. The fact of being female surfaces every time, wherever she is, whatever she is doing. And every time, because of the fact of being female, that kind of dominates everything else she does, and that kind of, results in whatever has to happen to her. You will see that whenever, for example, I'll give a very small example, that whenever there's a rape, whenever there's a robbery, rape is collateral damage. You understand? In war, rape is collateral damage. You know, because why? People like to take advantage of the situation. Because the woman is there, let's just have fun. Let's rape her. You know, so what happens is that in many cases, whatever women face, they face for the fact of being female. You know, a man is not molested when a robbery takes place. But a woman will be molested when a robbery takes place because it is easy. You know, and she's at hand, let's make use of her because she's a female. Many of the things which happen to women happen because, you know, their sex of being female dominates their identity of person. And then what happens when the fact of being female surfaces, it becomes easier for the other sections of society, the patriarchal section which comprises of men and women, they think that, you know, it is easy to dominate women because of the fact of being female and then, you know, do whatever they need to do very conveniently in the name of culture, religion and community. And that is how all societies across the world have been functioning, starting from female genital mutilation in Africa.
So this is, Sabrina,
you know?
I'd just like to add to this that, you know, when Meera Bhattakur had been, you know, removed from her primary membership, you know, removed, I mean, very unjudiciously, without a show cause notice, nothing. She says that imagine everybody, all the men came down hard on her on social media. They actually wrote such vile things against her just because all this time they were very nice to her, you know, they hadn't said anything. As soon as she was removed from that, she was, you know, the brunt of all kinds of vile things. So I think that's really.
So do you think all this so-called customs, traditions, culture are posing a big are coming up as a big obstacle to modern women in everything they want to achieve, in everything they want to do?
One thing I would want to bring in is that women are not a homogeneous category by any means.
Absolutely.
They are divided by, you know, class, they are divided by caste, by religion, by community identity, and many a times when there is this clash between a woman's identity of belonging to a particular community or religious group vis-a-vis her gender identity, the pressure is always on her to kind of, you know, accept or enact the community religious class or caste identity than her gender identity. So on the one hand, like Dr. Iqbal says, that the female sex is something which is, you know, kind of undermined, that is taken advantage of. On the other hand, in issues such as this, I think it is her community identity. It is believed that women, and because I've listened to H.S. Sheila talk about how a lot of women are in support of this, whereas he dismisses people like Patricia Mukhim, who's a vehemently opposed this bill, whereas he says, you know, a lot of women, and in fact 3 women in that MDC were in support, unanimously passed the bill. So when it comes to questions like that, you know, you take women as belonging to your community and women would kind of preserve that identity, but on the other hand you're also taking advantage of a woman because she's a woman and because she's disadvantaged in many cases, and disadvantaged historically, disadvantaged in society, disadvantaged politically. We know nowhere in any of the, you know, state assemblies women are have you know, political power as much as men have, and there has been always a resistance on women having that kind of political power, because of which such decisions are taken in places where women are less in numbers, and I think there is a lot of strength in numbers. So, yeah.
If I can go back to Hasina Kharbi in Shillong. Hasina Kharbi, in a society, in the Khasi society where women still enjoy so many privileges, why do you think issues like the Khasi lineage bill and similar kind of issues keep on cropping up every now and then?
I just want to give a perspective here that traditionally the Khasi women has enjoyed a lot of privileges. That's very true. But when it comes to the leadership roles, over the years, it has always been men in the forefront. Even when we talk about a Darbar system, we have men in the forefront. Women are there behind, giving support to the men. The other aspect that I wanted to bring here is that when we're talking about the other privileges of property rights, the youngest daughter no doubt hold more property rights which is ancestral in nature, but that when we're looking in today's world economically, we are finding more and more nuclear family, and ancestral property right is no longer in existence. So we also have to see that as days is going, traditionally the economic is different, is no longer what it used to be at one point of time. But a lot of people, I mean the KHADC has forgotten that traditionally equal distribution of property rights among Khasi has been in existence over many years. But in the later years, that has changed because of economic reason. But a lot of Khasi men felt that Khasi women had more privileges. So they had this movement, a men's group movement, to bring in patriarchal system into the society over the last 8-9 years now. It was coming into a small parts because they felt that Khasi women are marrying more outsiders than marrying people within the cultural group itself.
Do you think that has been an outside influence? Patriarchy has been an outside influence in the Khasi society.
I will not say it's. So I would say that, you know, in every society, in a democratic society, you have for and against, which is always open for debate. But in a system like this, where personal choices and personal rights of a woman, it's being controlled by a group, that is not acceptable. Because when we're looking at it by human right aspect globally or by the law, by a country, constitutional rights, personal rights is actually cannot be curtailed by any culture, but you know, like this culture itself cannot curtail that. So I think I would defer that it's not an influence, but I think it's also a movement when people are trying to come up by saying if the whole world is actually, you know, patriarchal in nature, why should we allow women to have more privileges in a matrilineal society? So it's a very debatable thing because we've seen this movement for a while.
Yes, that's a very good point. That's a very good point you have put forward. We'll take a very short break on this note. Don't go anywhere. Lots more coming up on the other side. Welcome back. You're watching Beyond the Bites. We're discussing women's issues. Are women still being made to be the bearers of culture and tradition? Well, Dr. Sarkar, what we have seen is that end of the day, as a society, we are probably heading nowhere as far as empowering women is concerned. There can be a lot of talks, a lot of seminars, we can go on, but on the ground, we do not see things happening. In fact, things in certain places are deteriorating.
Absolutely.
Probably things were not such 20 years back. Those things are happening now. Why so?
I think, you know, generally, if I have to answer your question, I would say that there has been largely there has been a rightist inclination among societies and states world over. So that is one large reason, a broad reason why we can say that things are deteriorating. But at the ground level, for example, in say the Assamese society or the Khasi society, for instance, you know, the basic idea is that the people have not altered their mindsets. We can have a large number of legislations and, you know, awareness campaigns and Beti Bachao, Beti Padhao, whatever. But ultimately, if it does not change at the level of the people, if the mindset is not altered, you know, that there cannot be any substantial change. And every time some kind of problem arises, we cannot start by controlling the women. That is my major problem. That, you know, and when we are discussing this issue, one thing that we missed out on highlighting, you know, I would like to bring that into context, is that we are talking about identity. We are talking about the Khasi identity getting diluted. But I think the irony at hand, the dilemma at hand is that identity is not something fixed. It is fluid. You know, the idea of identity is not concrete to understand. You know, I have had parents who spoke different languages, but I call myself an Okhomia. You know, there are many problems in understanding identity. So when we are talking about not diluting the Khasi identity, there also, I believe, similar parallels of dilemma will emerge, because we cannot exactly define who is quote unquote per se an absolute Khasi and who's not. You know, and this again cannot be the exclusive responsibility.
Isn't that what we are trying to define these days with a bigger zeal perhaps than ever?
Yeah, but the problem is that, you know, identities they have been and they will forever remain fluid. You know, so it is very difficult to put a full stop at where we stop defining an identity. And, you know, it's very difficult because all societies are ultimately societies formed by people migrating at one point or another. You know, these are very critical things to understand. But I just think that we missed out on the idea of identity when we're talking about the Khasi women's issue, and that was important to be brought into context.
Yeah.
I would like to, take from what you just suggested, that is it that societies have remained retrogressive? I mean, where are we heading? I mean, are we even progressing anywhere? I would take a more optimistic view in that, because I've been a student of women's studies, and I teach the women's movement. So I've seen this long drawn fight that women have had to, wage, even to be considered as citizens, even to gain the right to vote, and we have, made it so far. I mean, I think it has been a long fight, an unduly long battle, but yet we are here today. I mean, women have been gaining education and all of that, which is not to say that, we've achieved it all. And incidents like these, where women are we try to put women back in place, points to the fact that we still have a long battle to fight. Nevertheless, I am optimistic, and I see a lot of young, not only women but men, who have come up for these issues, who stand for women's issues, and that's a very positive sign. So I would remain very optimistic in terms of where our society is heading in terms of a change.
Very, very, very quickly, I would like to add to what Dr. Shaheen said, in context of what you asked. When we talk about women and women's empowerment and women's issues, there are positive and negative impacts on people when we talk about women's issues. Now, I think there's a problem with the kind of language we use, because what happens, I believe Dr. Shaheen will agree, that when we talk about something like, if there's a talk in my university, say on women's issues, a lot of, maybe, I'm just assuming, but I think there's a lot of truth in this assumption that a lot of people, a lot of boys will, maybe move away because these are women's issues. As soon as you say gender issues and women's issues, they'll say, what have we got to do with these things? Because, these are women's issues. And there's an inherent tendency among people to sideline whenever it comes to things like gender or women's issues, these kind of attitudes. So what happens, there is a kind of very convenient sidelining. There's a very frivolous attitude, I think, which is also responsible for, not a substantive change when it comes to empowerment of women, etc.
I'd like to add something. I'll make 2 quick points. In May this year, I had made a Facebook Live, and I'd done a Facebook live on fuel and diesel price rises and all. You wouldn't imagine, Noborun, the kind of vile, I had to face the brunt of the men. You wouldn't imagine the kind of things they said. They said,
Try doing that now, you won't face it.
No, 1 second. I did, the prices were rising at that point of time. I did it, and then they were saying that,
I had seen the comments,
you have seen the comments, and they have been really, really bad. So I'd gone to the police station, I had, given my things, and they had said all kinds of things. I'm a Bangladeshi, I'm a Pakistani, I'm a prostitute,
Again,
I'm all kinds of things.
Again, that's probably not...
Just 1 second. Yeah. If somebody like you would have done it, probably you wouldn't have had, you wouldn't have faced that kind of a, those kind of comments. Now, Dr. Sabina was saying something. She was saying about, about the aggressive society that we are in. Yes, we are in. If you take this example, we are actually, women face a lot of aggression. But again, if I come back to my political scene, the men in my party are actually very, very supportive of me. Very, very supportive. It's the women who are actually against me, And I'm very sad to say that, they will come up with weird things like, oh, she's too young. She's not experienced enough to become a spokesperson or a leader or anything. But it's the men who want to give the chance, So in the very beginning, I said, I'm not a feminist. I love the men who I work around.
Even the women are not together on the issues.
Yes,
and that
they
is
are
one of
not
the major
homogeneous,
concerns
like
that
you
we've
were
been
saying.
discussing. Just like the lineage that we were discussing.
There is a conceptual clarification I would like to make, The thing is that whenever we talk about feminism, we are not talking for women and against men. And there is no idea that all women are feminist. It is actually not about biology. It is about patriarchy as an institution. And women can be patriarchs as well.
Dr. Sabrina, I've met some hardcore feminists who wouldn't even hear the word man, So I'm making it and clarifying.
I'll tell you why that happens. Because feminism is not a unilinear school. There are many differences within the school as well. But, when you said that there are a lot of women who oppose you because they are patriarchs.
And that, of course, what you said, that of course leaves a lot of room for criticism.
They oppose oppose you
and
because
actually
they are
put women at the
patriarchs, and
receiving
the
end.
men who
I think,
support you, they
one
support
needs
you
to
because they are feminists.
also look at
Okay.
the
You know, it works like
context.
that.
For example, in this case, you had 3 women in the MDC who supported the
Absolutely.
bill.
Yeah.
And you had Shahbano who actually rejected a judgment in her favor.
Exactly.
Similarly, you have such, but then you have to understand, like I said in the beginning, in one of the things, that when it comes to your gender identity versus your community, which is the identity, what is
Which
the
is
pressure?
primary, which is
What is the
primary.
pressure that is put on a woman in the context of that society? That I think is very, very crucial. One cannot really
And
miss that.
if I can go back to Hasina Karbi in Shillong, Hasina Karbi, Khasi women have enjoyed a lot of rights. I mean, they own the businesses, they own the property, and they also command a lot of respect. There's no doubt about that. Why then, they have still now lagged behind in leadership roles, be in politics, be in party politics, be it in community leadership? Why do you think women have lagged behind while at a time when they are, if I can use this word, quote unquote, the bosses at home, unlike men in other societies?
Well, a matrilineal society is not a matriarchal. So the Khasi, the Khasi is a matrilineal and not a matriarchal.
There's a difference.
Where the, the uncles still play, a maternal uncle still play a very important role in a lot of decision making. Even though the youngest hold property rights, she is only the caretaker of the property. So there has always been the participation of both men and women. But when it comes to the Darbar system, since ancient years, it's always the men who sit in the Darbar system. We have very less women participation. When even if they participate, they are not in the forefront, but in always supporting the men in the Darbar system. So we have never seen leadership roles emerging of Khasi communities because of these cultural practices over the years. Of course, there has been changes where very few women has come forward, very few women has taken up political roles, have taken up different roles. But having said that, there's always still the biggest challenge of their forefront. There are 2 aspects to it. We have done a research under the UNDP to find out why women are not taking up leadership role in politics. We realized that the cultural practices over the years has always made them more okay with what they are doing rather than coming in the forefront. The other aspect that we found out in the research is that women felt that even if they have been very active in politics, when it comes for getting a party ticket, it's always never there. And that is not only for the women in Meghalaya, because we have done that research in the 8 states of the Northeast.
Yes,
it's very,
in fact,
very
Meghalaya
common.
is a bit
so that's
better
also one
when
angle.
it comes
So
to
it's
some
just
of the
not
other
about
northeastern states. Yeah.
Yes. So that's another aspect that we need to take in consideration. It's just not about women in Meghalaya or Khasi women who are not coming up in leadership role. Look at the entire region. There are very, very few who are really into the political field. But it's not necessary that all women has to come to the political field. But it can be any form of strong leadership which is in the forefront. We have not seen that much. It has emerged, it has changed over the years, but it's still yet that needs to come. And that haven't, it's not about cultural here. It's also about participation, it's also about opportunities. And those opportunities doesn't come very less. I think women breaking the glass ceiling is something, a debate and a challenge that is happening all over the world.
Again, I want to add to what Hasina is saying, something very, very important. In fact, if you're asking this question, why women are not there more in political decision making, we have to understand historically women have always been kept away from the public domain.
Yes.
The domain which is thought of as the domain where women can operate is the private domain. And historically, we have not seen women. If you look at history, you do not find
women leaders.
Women leaders. You do not find, women holding these positions. And where are the role models for the future generation to kind of emulate? So I think there needs to be a change which has to come from within.
Isn't that supposed to be the beginning of women's empowerment?
I would also like to substantiate. I absolutely agree with Dr. Shaheen, because what happens when you ask about what about women in formal politics? Now, formal politics is all about power, and power has been largely idealized as a masculine domain. you know, and there's always been the idea of women need to be protected. So somebody who needs protection, how can that person be seen to assume a position of power where she stands up and protects the rights of others? So there are some very, you know, theoretical and very practical reasons why women have been absent from the forefront of power politics, you know, and as a result, what has happened, they are seen to organize themselves in alternative forms of politics like social movements. You know, you have a lot of women in alternative politics because they will not be given a position in the formal politics of power.
Again, it could be an assumption of convenience. So you have a society, you have a in India where the majority of the people are Hindus. We have a society where we worship Shakti, Devi. You know,
that's
the
a very big irony.
Symbol of power.
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
and then
There are many ironies
don't get
in
the
it.
opportunity.
Yeah.
Now, what is the way forward? You can say the change in mindset that might take a long time. What is the immediate way forward in terms of legislation, in terms of laws, in terms of action by the authorities? What can be done? Starting with you, Tinat Masood.
I think I'm very positive. Like Dr. Shaheen had said, I'm very positive about this. See, I'm already into into politics, and I can understand that through my activities, through what I do, my party has kind of observed me, and I'm not there to do some buttering or to go and kind of do anything that give me this post or something like that. I'm not like that. My works, my actions actually speak louder, and then that is how they are identifying me. They are putting me into responsible posts, and that is, I think, the way forward. You cannot change anyone's mindset. I'm not even asking that the man of the street is going to change his mindset about a woman. He's still going to lech, and he's still going to look at a woman the way he does always. I'm absolutely not expecting that, but I'm very positive that women actually can bring about the change.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, we need more role models, like I said, definitely, to bring about change. But I am very positive myself because I've seen, I mean, it has taken time, but there has been change. And mindset, of course, doesn't change in a day. We need more concerted effort. When it comes to India, and if I see the laws, I feel we have enough laws. We are one of the countries which have the most protective legislations that can ever be on women, but yet we are not making any substantive change. So somewhere we need role models, we need more gender education at the school level, because I find a lot of times at the school level there is a lot of gender discrimination happening. We need to address it there, and there are many such ways in which one can bring about a change. But definitely we need more women role models. We need more women in the public domain in decision making.
Need for more women role models. Yes, Dr. Iqbal, last words from you.
I have 3 things to say. First of all, I think there should be sensitizing about women's issues, which is very important, to not kind of take them in a frivolous or a fickle manner. Second, I think everybody has talking about, better role models and mechanisms and everything. I think that it is very important to have more women in the public spaces. We need women to reclaim the public spaces. Visibility can go a very long way in ensuring the empowerment and, their respective entitlements to women. And I think, in the specific context of what we had the discussion today, I think we just need to put a stop, or maybe just begin to stop the legitimization of things like culture, religion, and community guidelines to control women and treat women as equal individuals, as equal stakeholders of society. I think that would be a beginning.
Hasina Kharbi, last words from you. Will social activists like you fight tooth and nail against any attempts to curb the rights of Khasi women?
I think having spent 30 years in the human rights sector, having worked with women issues over the last 30 years, I will definitely not support the existing bill. I am glad that the bill has been, it was tabled, but it has been returned, because I would say that women's rights issue in terms of personal right cannot be taken away by customary or any other traditions. And it's very, very important that the bill has to have an outlook which is much more democratic, which is much more preservation of a culture which has been very beautiful in terms of allowing a lot of women to participate. I will still stand for the fact that a lot of young women, there's a young woman who is actually campaigning for a signature campaign to actually not not agreeable with this bill.
Absolutely.
But we're having group and section of the society who are men who are actually coming forward to stop that, who's coming forward to say that
and
is not right.
That's very heartening. We are running out of time, so a great discussion we had today, and safely you can say, we can't say about women being the carriers of culture, tradition, history, but one thing's for sure, women now got to be the carriers of change. They have to be the role models, and they have to bring about the change they want to see for themselves. On that note, we bid you goodbye today. Do join us for another episode of Beyond the Bites the same time next week. Till then, stay safe, stay well.